Hi, I'm an idiot millionaire. I made so many mistakes that I don't want you to make. So these 7 mistakes, if you can avoid them, just imagine how rich you can be. All right, ready? Ready to laugh at me and learn and make more money? Let's go. All right, the first one was I spent so much money so stupidly. I spent money going to Vegas, I spent money doing crazy trips. Now sure, adventures are great, but they didn't have to be so expensive. And I could have took that money and invested it back in the business. And when you put money back in your business, that money will grow. So when you get your money, budget properly on how much money you're going to invest into yourself, because as Warren Buffett says, the greatest investment anybody can make is an investment in themselves, in learning the high income skills of sales, copywriting, speaking, and leadership. So you put some of the money into that. Then you put some of the money into the business. You put it into getting team members who you can delegate to so that you can open up your time for greater high income skills. You put money into and investing into better people, right? There's going to be great copywriters, great salespeople. If you're trying to do it all on your own and your skills are only here, but you can hire somebody whose skills are here, you'll make this much money. So don't be cheap within your business and taking that money and spending wildly outside of it. You don't need a Lambo, you don't need a yacht, you don't need crazy trips to Vegas. You just need to be wise, a good steward of your money. Wish I would have done that. All right, so that was mistake number 1. The second mistake is one that I know so many young people are making, and that is they drink too much. Listen, if I could go back in time, I would sit myself down and I would say, stop drinking so much. I'm not saying don't drink. I'm just saying stop drinking so much. You don't need to binge drink. You don't need to keep on drinking like a frat boy when you're over 23. You got to slow it down. Just think of all the wasted hours, the wasted days, the wasted money, the wasted brain cells, everything that I lost by drinking. In fact, it gets worse. The drinking led to the anxiety. And that's the third thing, is the anxiety was a combination of many mistakes that I made. Drinking on the weekends, not getting out of my own head, asking for help, not sharing my problems, putting it all on my back, suffering in silence, all of these things led to me having anxiety attacks. And if I just would have taken care of myself like I was taking care of my business, I would have had so much more success in life. I wouldn't have suffered the pain of going to the emergency room twice. You don't know what it's like to go in there being otherwise young and healthy. In fact, I was in the best shape of my life when I had to go to the emergency room. Now, best shape physically, but inside there was so much wrong with me, so much wrong with my decision making, so much wrong with my maturity levels, all because of the drinking, which led to the anxiety. So you need to open up. You need to get out of your head. You need to journal. You need to talk to a therapist. You need to talk to your friends. You need to ask for help. You need to stop trying to do everything on your own. And when you stop suffering in silence, your life will actually get so much better. So that mistake cost me probably $1 million because again, I spent days in the emergency room. I spent weeks, months, paralyzed, crippled by the anxiety. I couldn't think properly. And that was during a time during rapid business growth. If I had been thinking properly instead of at 30 or 40 or 50%, I probably would have doubled the success I had at that time. Now, fortunately, I've been able to turn that struggle of anxiety into a message which has impacted a lot of people, but I much rather would have avoided it in the first place. Now, again, there's always good news in your struggles. So every mistake that I've made, yeah, it cost me a lot of money back then, but it's gonna make me a lot of money in the future. So if you are failing, if you are struggling, if you are making mistakes, don't beat yourself up about it, okay? Because you can't change the past. The pain, the suffering, the regrets, just put them all in a mystical fire, burn it all, and move on. Give yourself a little bit of grace, and let's go. Now you can see how all of these mistakes add up and accumulate. So by suffering in silence, by being an anxious introvert, by drinking so much, it actually led to the next problem, which was I was a boss and not a leader. It was top down, me giving orders and yelling at people and being a real jerk for a long time. And this extended even into my early coaching years. So I was making a lot of mistakes there. And so what you need to do, if you want to be a great entrepreneur, if you want to make a lot of money, is you have to stop being a boss, okay? It's not the goal to be the boss. It isn't cool to be a boss babe or whatever it is that you want to call yourself these days. Being a boss is actually a failure because you need to be a leader. Now, there's a great infographic that shows like a boss is the person like whipping the people, pulling the wagon. No, that's not how it is. Instead, the leader is encouraging people and is actually at the front of the line pulling people along with them. Or there's another concept that you can think of called servant leadership. Most people, when they think of the boss, the CEO, they think of the CEOs up here, and then there's people under him here, and then people under him here. It's a wrong way of looking at it. What you need to do is be the servant leader underneath everybody. Everybody is above you, and you're supporting them. So that mistake I made for so long, and it resulted in me pretty much getting in fights with my team, being passive aggressive, having them not do the work that I wanted to, because when I finally became a leader, people said, how can I help? I want to help. They volunteered their time. They wanted to be part of my mission and my vision. They go the extra mile. They work longer even though I tell them not to, because leadership inspires people to be their best. And so if you're a boss and you're telling people what to do, switch it up. Become a leader, and become a leader who gives your teammates, your team members, an environment in which they can flourish. So I don't use the word boss. I don't use the word employee. I talk about, yes, I try to be the leader for my team members, but they actually lead me as well. So we give them great opportunity, great autonomy in the business, and the more of a leader and less of a boss I became, the more money the business made. So don't make the mistake of being bossy in your personal life or in your professional life. It will come back to haunt you. So when I was a boss, I thought I knew everything. And I wouldn't take people's suggestions. I wouldn't hire people to give me outside eyes. And so I ended up making this huge mistake. I started doing more instead of doing better. Now, let me explain what that means here for a second. There was two ways that this applied. One, I was selling my workout programs at the time, and instead of me getting better at advertising and marketing, I just thought, I'll just go and create more new products, and that will grow my business. But that's not how it works. I eventually was selling the same thing over and over again to the same customers, and that hurt my business. I was struggling. I was stuck and struggling at an income level because I didn't want to go and do the hard work and invest in myself and get better at the skills. So I set aside the high income skills and took the easy way out, took the path of least resistance, which is a common mistake that I see in too many people today. So inside of the business, path of least resistance will always get you a little bit of victory, but never a massive win. So that's where I struggled. It wasn't until I set aside my bossiness, became a better leader, hired great people, brought them in, and we got great at the marketing and sales, which allowed us to grow the business. So it's not always about doing more, it's about doing it better. And it was the same with my work habits. All of a sudden I was working 10, 12, 14 hours a day. And that was another contributor to the anxiety. Instead of working better, I worked more. Instead of getting better at selling, I tried to sell a whole bunch of more stuff. So don't always think that more is better. It's not. Oftentimes, always, better is better. So look to get better in your own personal habits and your professional skills, and you will grow by leaps and bounds even if you're not working as much. I have a friend of mine who makes quite a bit more money than I do, working a lot less because he got better way back then and it compounded over time. That mistake has cost me so much money. I'm just lucky that I didn't make it forever, and I finally was able to grow the team and have my business almost catch up to his. Okay, last one. It all ties together. When you're a boss, you have a big ego. And when you have a big ego, you don't ask for help. And so the big mistake here was having the big ego, not setting it aside and asking for a coach or a mentor who could improve every area of my business. So that was the mistake that I made in so many areas. So if you have a big ego, if you think you're the greatest, the smartest, that nobody can teach you anything, that mistake will ruin your life. It'll ruin your marriage, it'll ruin your relationships, it'll ruin your fitness, it'll ruin your health, it'll ruin everything, because I've always been stubborn and had the big ego. And I needed help in the business. I needed help in the relationships. I needed help in fixing my body from years of breaking it down. And whenever I neglect the help from other people, the outside eyes of a coach or a mentor, everything ends up hurting. Recently I hurt my back because I hadn't had a personal trainer in a long time. Even though I'm a fitness expert, I don't know everything. I need the outside eyes, my technique, my form, my program design. Because if I'm gonna design my program, I'm gonna only do the stuff that I like, not the stuff that's best for me. Same with my business. I'm only gonna do the stuff that I like, not the stuff that's best for me. Same in my leadership skills. I'm only gonna do the stuff that I'm willing to do. I'm gonna stay inside my comfort zone. When you have a big ego, it blocks you from getting out of the comfort zone. It's like a giant rock on the path. Success is on the other side, you're in your comfort zone, and your ego is in the way. So avoid the mistake that I made. That might be the most important thing, because if you set your ego aside, you'll be open to feedback. My friend Stephen Georgi, who's on the road to $1 billion empire, he recently said that probably the #1 skill in entrepreneurship is the ability to take constructive criticism in order to take feedback. Because if you can't take feedback, you can't improve. Imagine a professional athlete who said, no, I'm not going to take any feedback on my jump shot or my sprinting technique. They would never hit Olympic or gold medal or world championship levels of performance. They have to take feedback. But if you have a big ego, you're not going to take feedback. So having the big ego, now that I look back at it, as I explain all this to you, it was the biggest mistake, the #1 mistake, that if I didn't have a big ego, I wouldn't have made any of the other mistakes. I wouldn't have spent the money because I would have listened to people who would have said to me, Craig, maybe you should think about doing something else with your money. I wouldn't have drank so much because the people who said, okay, listen, you're a little too old for this. You don't need to drink so much. Or like, hey buddy, I'm gonna cut you off. No, the big ego got in the way. I knew better. So that was a mistake. Please don't make the mistakes that I made. I made them in my 20s, I made them in my late teens, I made them in my 30s. If you can stop them now, if you can stop having a big ego, ask for help. Oh my goodness, the world will be yours. You can have anything that you want. You can have anything you want if you just don't make the major mistakes. In fact, that's one of Warren Buffett's things that they live by. They don't have to be the smartest people. They just have to make the least mistakes in investing. And it's the same with your business, your personal life. Don't go and put so much work into building a great relationship and then blow it all up with one weekend in Vegas. The mistakes are what can ruin you. So just make sure to avoid them. How to do that? Get accountability, get a coach, get a mentor, get outside eyes, get someone who's been there and done that, achieved what you want to achieve, who's gone through the same struggles as you have. I've worked with so many people who have anxiety because they know that I got through it. And when you get through something, then go and pass it along to somebody else. If you need help with any of these, if you need help overcoming your ego or overcoming anxiety, drop me a comment down below. I'm happy to dive deeper into it in a future video.